11:47 p.m. My phone lit up. "Get out, fat old man. My wife doesn't want you here." It came from my son-in-law's number. 6 minutes earlier, I had just transferred $2,300 to cover the homeowner's insurance, under my name. I stared at the screen for a long time. The house was worth $420,000. The mortgage? Zero. Every tax bill, every repair, every cracked pipe over the last 15 years paid by me. And yet, I was being told to leave. Emily's coat was still hanging by the kitchen chair. If she truly wanted me gone, she would have said it herself. She always did. I didn't reply. I picked up the old brass key to the front door, the one I'd carried since we moved in, and held it tight in my palm. When a man thinks he's pushing you out, sometimes he's just showing you where to pull. Before I go on, tell me where you're watching from and what time it is there. And please, take care of your health. At our age, that matters more than pride. I didn't argue. I started counting. I am Leonard Brooks. Most people call me Len. 68 years old, born in Alberta, Canada. Came down to Montana with a duffel bag and a welding certificate when I was 20. I spent 40 years running a small machine shop outside town. Not glamorous work. Steel, oil, long winters, early mornings. But honest. The house I was told to leave? I bought it 12 years ago for $265,000. It's worth around $420,000 now. Paid off. Taxes run about $5,800 a year. Every cent documented. My name is the only one on that deed. Emily moved back in 3 years ago after she married Trevor Miles. She's 34, elementary school teacher. Soft voice, big heart. She used to sit on an overturned milk crate in my shop when she was 8, asking why sparks looked like fireflies. Trevor came later. 38, project manager for a mid-size construction firm. Clean shirts, firm handshake. Always said the right thing in public. "Len's been good to us," he'd tell neighbors. And I was. I covered the insurance, the utilities. I even co-signed a $165,000 business loan for Trevor last year. He said it was an opportunity. Short-term risk, long-term gain, he told me. I believed him. Maybe I wanted to. Over the past 6 months, something shifted. Emily stopped dropping by my workshop corner in the garage. She stopped calling me Dad in front of Trevor. Small things. Quiet things. One evening I asked her gently, "Are we all right?" She looked tired. "I just don't want conflict." That wasn't an answer. I tried calling her the next morning from the diner. Straight to voicemail. Again that night. Same thing. I checked twice to make sure I hadn't dialed wrong. Later, when she left her phone on the kitchen counter, I noticed my contact name. Blocked. My chest didn't tighten, not the way it would have 10 years ago. Age does something to a man. It slows the heat, sharpens the edges. Trevor started making small comments. "He forgets things lately," he said once, smiling as he said it. "Maybe it's time to downsize," he suggested. Another night. Downsize. From a house I owned. I began writing things down. Dates, times, phrases. I found myself listening more than speaking. Watching who entered a room first. Watching who answered for whom. 2 days after the text, I went through my file cabinet. Warranty papers, tax receipts. The deed. The brass key still felt heavy in my pocket. If Emily had truly wanted me gone, she would have told me to my face. So I asked myself one question instead. Who benefits if I leave quietly? And that was when I realized this wasn't about hurt feelings at all. The morning after I found my number blocked, I didn't confront anyone. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, listened. Trevor was already dressed for work. crisp shirt, confident tone. He kissed Emily on the forehead and said, "Try not to stress today, Em. I'll handle your dad." Handle. That word stayed with me. After they left, I walked outside and checked the doorbell camera app on my old tablet. I rarely used it, installed it mostly for package deliveries. I scrolled back to the night of the text, 11:46 p.m. Trevor stepped onto the porch, not to smoke, not to take a call. He was holding a phone, not his own. He looked down at it, typed something, paused, then typed again. 11:47 p.m. My phone had lit up inside the house. I replayed it 3 times. He wasn't pacing. He wasn't arguing. He looked calm, focused, deliberate. That afternoon, I drove to see Mrs. Parker. She's 62, retired nurse, window facing our driveway. "You ever notice anything odd?" I asked. She hesitated, then lowered her voice. "Trevor's been telling people you're planning to sell the house out from under them." I let that settle. "He said you're forgetful," she added gently, "that Emily's worried." Forgetful. I drove straight to the bank. The loan I co-signed, $165,000, had missed 2 payments. Late fees were stacking up. When I asked for statements, the clerk said, "Mr. Miles inquired about refinancing options last week." Refinancing. On a property that wasn't his. That evening, I asked Trevor casually, "How's the project coming along?" He didn't blink. Solid. Investors are confident. Investors. But the bank's tone hadn't been confident. Later, when Emily stepped outside to take a call, I tried one more time. "Did you ask me to leave?" I said quietly. She looked confused, not angry, not defensive. Why would I say that? That wasn't what I expected. Before she could say more, Trevor re-entered the room. "Everything okay?" he asked, smiling. Too quickly. That night, I sat in my study and opened a small notebook. I wrote down the timeline. Camera, 11:46 p.m. Text, 11:47 p.m. Bank inquiry, refinancing, loan, 2 missed payments. Then I checked something else. My contact was blocked on Emily's phone, but not deleted. Blocked. Someone had taken the time to silence me, not erase me. The next morning, I drove 40 minutes to see Carl Jennings. We've known each other 30 years. He handles property law. I placed the deed on his desk. "My name only," I said. He adjusted his glasses. "You're the sole owner, Len. And if I decided to sell, you could close in 30 days. Faster if you price it right." I nodded. Carl leaned back. "Is this about family?" "It's about clarity," I replied. When I got home, Trevor was in the garage, on my old workbench, spreading out paperwork. He looked up and smiled. "Good news," he said. "I think we can leverage some equity." We. For the first time, I saw it clearly. This wasn't anger. It wasn't insult. It was strategy. And I wasn't the only one playing. Trevor spread the documents across my old workbench like he owned the place. Blueprints on one side, loan statements on the other. My workbench, the same scarred oak surface where Emily once drew crayon flowers while I filed steel parts. "We could restructure everything," he said. "Tap into the equity. It's just smart leverage." Leverage. He spoke like I was a junior partner in something I had built alone. I leaned against the doorway. "You mean refinance?" He nodded. "Short term. Clean up some cash flow, then we stabilize." Cash flow. I already knew about the missed payments, 2 cycles behind, late fees compounding. "What exactly are we stabilizing?" I asked. He smiled, thin, controlled. "My project just hit a temporary delay. 90,000 tied up. Once it clears, we're golden. 90,000. He said it like it was weather, like rain that would pass. That evening, I reviewed the bank portal again. The loan balance hadn't moved. Interest was climbing. Trevor had requested payoff information twice, not advice. Payoff information. The next morning, I tried something simple. "Emily," I said while she poured coffee, "did Trevor mention refinancing?" She froze, just for a second. "He said you brought it up," she replied. I studied her face. No defiance, no sarcasm, just uncertainty. "I didn't," I said gently. Trevor walked in before she could respond. "Everything good?" he asked. Emily glanced between us. "You said Dad wanted to refinance." Trevor didn't blink. "We discussed options. He agreed we should look at them." He turned to me. "Right?" It was subtle, calm, controlled. He wasn't shouting. He was rewriting the room. I didn't argue. Later that afternoon, I logged into the utility account I'd been paying for years. The password had changed. So had the Wi-Fi credentials. I called the service provider. Changes were requested by Mr. Miles, the representative said. My name wasn't even secondary on the account anymore. I drove past the house twice that night before pulling into the driveway. Lights on upstairs. Voices raised. Trevor speaking quickly. "She's overreacting," he said. "Your dad's paranoid." Paranoid. When I entered, the room went quiet. Emily looked tired. "Trevor says you've been talking to the bank behind our backs." "Our backs," I repeated. He stepped forward. "You're destabilizing things, Len. We're building something here." Building. On land he didn't own. I walked to the study and opened my file drawer. Deed. Tax receipts. Insurance renewal under my name. Signed 2 days before the text. I placed the brass key on the desk and stared at it for a long time. Control doesn't always look violent. Sometimes it looks organized. That night, I called Carl Jennings again. If I wanted to move quickly, I asked, how fast could we close? There was a pause on the line. "If the price is right," he said, "I can have buyers in 48 hours. 48 hours. When I hung up, Trevor was standing in the hallway. "You making big decisions alone?" he asked softly. I met his eyes. "No," I said. "Just preparing." For the first time, his smile faltered. And that's when I realized. He had been counting on something I was about to remove. The house felt different after that call with Carl Jennings. Not hostile, just staged. Trevor had started speaking softer around Emily, slower, measured, like a man adjusting tone in a meeting he didn't fully control. One evening, I came in from the garage and heard them in the kitchen. "You can't let him panic like this," Trevor was saying. "If he sells without telling us, we're done." Done. Emily's voice was low. "He wouldn't do that." "You don't know that," Trevor replied quickly. "He's been acting strange." Strange. I stepped in before the word could settle further. "Acting strange how?" I asked. Trevor didn't flinch. "You're making financial moves without transparency." Transparency. The man who changed passwords without notice was now asking for transparency. I poured myself a glass of water and said nothing. Silence is heavier than anger when used correctly. Later that night, Emily knocked on my study door. "Dad, are you planning to sell?" Her eyes weren't accusing. They were searching. "Why would you think that?" I asked. Trevor had told her. She hesitated. "He said you mentioned downsizing, that maybe you felt crowded." Crowded. I looked around my study, the shelves I built, the photos of her mother, the old shop awards. "I've never felt crowded in my own house," I said quietly. Emily sat down across from me. Trevor thinks we need stability. He says refinancing would solve everything. Everything. What exactly is everything? I asked. She didn't answer. The next morning, I drove back to the bank, not to confront anyone, just to request full documentation. Loan history, inquiry logs, communication notes. The banker handed me a printout. Trevor had asked about equity extraction options tied specifically to anticipated sole occupancy. Sole occupancy. That phrase didn't belong to him. I drove home slowly. When I entered the house, Trevor was at the dining table with a stack of forms. Just reviewing some options, he said casually. If we restructure, we could free up $120,000 in equity. I sat down across from him. And whose equity would that be? I asked. He leaned back. It's a family asset. No, I said calmly. It's mine. Emily walked in mid-sentence. She froze, sensing the shift. Trevor changed tactics instantly. Len's worried about retirement security, he said gently. I'm just trying to protect everyone. Protect. I noticed something else then. Emily's debit card was on the table. Trevor picked it up before she could. Small move, automatic, unquestioned. That night, I reviewed something else. The joint utility statements. Emily's name had been removed from the secondary notification list. Only Trevor received alerts now. Control doesn't always shout. Sometimes it edits. I made one more call. Carl, I said, list it. He didn't ask questions. We priced the house at $402,000, below market. Fast sale, clean exit. 2 offers came within 24 hours. I signed. I didn't tell Trevor. I didn't tell Emily. 48 hours. That's how long it takes to shift the ground under a man who thinks he owns the soil. The next morning, I transferred $25,000 into a separate account. Seed money for the scholarship fund Emily once dreamed about when she was in college. Trevor had called it financially irresponsible. I called it memory. That evening, he confronted me. You went to the bank again, he said. Yes, without looping us in. I don't need a loop, I replied. For the first time, his composure cracked. If you destabilize this house, you destabilize her, he said, pointing toward Emily's closed bedroom door. Her. He wasn't protecting her. He was positioning her. I walked past him without raising my voice. The sale would close in less than 2 days. And Trevor still believed he was the one holding the leverage. The house grew quieter the closer we got to closing day. Trevor stopped mentioning refinancing, stopped smiling so easily, started watching me. I could feel it, the calculation behind his eyes. On Tuesday afternoon, I installed a small voice recorder behind a stack of old manuals in the living room bookshelf. Not dramatic, not spy level, just a precaution. At my age, you learn to gather proof before you raise your voice. That night, I pretended to fall asleep early. Around 10:30 p.m., I heard Trevor pacing downstairs. His voice was low but sharp. She'll sign whatever I put in front of her, he said into the phone. No, he doesn't know the full structure. Once he's out, we restructure. Restructure. I lay still in the dark, staring at the ceiling. He's isolated, Trevor continued. She thinks he's unstable. It's easier than you think. Isolated. The word didn't sting. It clarified. The next morning, I retrieved the recorder and drove straight to Carl Jennings's office. We played the audio twice. Carl removed his glasses and rubbed his forehead. If he pressures her financially, that's coercion. He's not pressuring, I said. He's preparing. Carl leaned back. Your sale closes tomorrow at 3 p.m. Funds will wire immediately. Once recorded, you no longer own the property. I nodded. And the loan? I asked. Once you revoke the guarantee, the bank can call it due. Due. The weight of that word settled in my chest. Not heavy, just final. When I returned home, Emily was sitting at the kitchen table grading papers. "Dad," she said softly, "Trevor thinks you're acting out of fear." "Fear? I'm acting out of clarity," I replied. She looked at me carefully. "He says you don't trust him." I studied her face, searching for something I could still recognize. "Trust," I said, "is built on transparency." Trevor entered before she could answer. "Are we having private meetings now?" he asked lightly. "No," I said. "Just conversation." He walked closer. "Len, you're making this harder than it needs to be. We're trying to build a future." "On whose foundation?" I asked quietly. He didn't answer. That afternoon, I called the bank and formally withdrew my co-signature guarantee. The representative explained the implications carefully. "Mr. Brooks, if Mr. Miles cannot satisfy the outstanding balance, the account may default." "I understand," I said. The balance remaining was $157,800. When I hung up, I felt something unexpected. Not anger, relief. At dinner, Trevor's phone rang twice. He stepped outside to answer both calls. Emily watched him through the window. "He's stressed," she said. "So am I," I replied. Later that evening, I packed a single overnight bag. Nothing dramatic, just essentials. The brass key felt heavier in my pocket. Trevor confronted me near the stairs. "You're not really going through with this," he said. "With what?" "Selling." I met his eyes. "Yes," I said. For the first time, there was no smile. "No one's going to buy that fast," he said. "You're bluffing." I didn't argue, because at 3 p.m. tomorrow, it would no longer be my house, and he still didn't know the bank had already been notified. Wednesday arrived without ceremony. No thunder, no raised voices, just paperwork. At 2:57 p.m., I sat in Carl Jennings's office, pen resting above the final signature line. The buyer was a regional property management firm, clean transfer, no contingencies. $402,000 wired upon recording. Carl looked at me once. "You're certain?" "Yes," I said. I signed. At 3:12 p.m., the county registry confirmed the deed transfer. The house was no longer mine, and Trevor still didn't know. I drove home slowly, not out of hesitation, out of habit. The road felt the same, the mailbox, the cracked sidewalk near the driveway. Inside, Trevor was on his laptop. He looked up. "How'd your meeting go?" "Productive," I replied. Emily stepped out of the hallway. She sensed something. "What happened?" she asked. I placed a folder on the dining table. "Sit," I said gently. Trevor didn't sit. Emily did. I opened the folder, printed bank logs, camera timestamps, audio transcript, clear, dated, organized. Trevor glanced once at the papers and laughed softly. "You recorded me?" "I documented," I corrected. Emily's eyes moved across the page. 11:46 p.m. Porch footage. 11:47 p.m. Message sent. Transcript. She'll sign whatever I put in front of her. Her hands began to tremble. "Trevor," she whispered. He didn't deny it immediately. He pivoted. "He's manipulating context," he said calmly. "You know how he is with numbers." I didn't respond. Emily picked up her phone, scrolled, checked blocked contacts. My name, blocked for 6 months. She stared at Trevor. "You said he stopped calling," she said. "I thought he did," Trevor answered quickly. "No," she said. "You told me he lost interest." Silence filled the room. Trevor stepped closer to her. Listen. I was trying to protect you. He was destabilizing everything. By blocking him? She asked. He didn't answer. I reached into my jacket pocket and placed something else on the table. The closing statement. Emily read the top line slowly. Property transfer completed. Her face went pale. You sold it? She asked. Yes, I said. Trevor's composure cracked. You had no right, he snapped. I had every right, I replied calmly. My name is the only one on the deed. He stepped forward, voice rising. You just destroyed her stability. I held his gaze. No, I said. I removed leverage. For a moment, I saw something in Trevor I hadn't before. Not greed, fear. I invested $90,000 into that project, he said, voice shaking. I needed time. The equity would have fixed it. You needed control, I said. Emily looked at him like she was seeing a stranger. You told me it was profitable, she whispered. It will be, he insisted. It just needed space. Space. The same word he used when he told her I was crowding them. The same word he used to justify blocking my number. I slid the brass key across the table. You have until Friday to vacate, I said quietly. After that, it's no longer up to me. Trevor stared at the key. Who's the buyer? He demanded. I didn't answer, because that detail no longer mattered. What mattered was this. For the first time since the message arrived at 11:47 p.m., Emily wasn't looking at me. She was looking at him. And she was finally asking questions. But it was already too late. The air in the house shifted after that night. Not louder, colder. Trevor stopped pretending. He didn't argue anymore. He calculated. The next morning, his phone rang before sunrise. He stepped outside to answer. I watched from the kitchen window without being seen. His shoulders tightened. Yes, I understand, he said. No, I wasn't aware the guarantee was withdrawn. Withdrawn. The bank had moved faster than he expected. When he came back in, his jaw was clenched. Emily was already awake, sitting at the table. What happened? She asked. Trevor hesitated. They're reviewing the account. Reviewing? She pressed. He exhaled. The loan might be called due. Might? She said. He didn't answer. I spoke quietly from the doorway. It's already in motion. Trevor turned toward me sharply. You blindsided us. I notified the bank legally, I replied. That's not a blindside. That's procedure. Emily looked between us, processing. How much is left? She asked. Trevor didn't respond. $157,800, I said evenly. Her hand covered her mouth. You told me it was down to 90, she whispered. It will balance once the investor releases funds, Trevor insisted. Which investor? She asked. Silence. Later that afternoon, a certified letter arrived. Notice of default, stamped in red. Trevor opened it with shaking fingers. 30 days to satisfy the balance. He paced the living room. This is sabotage, he muttered. He wants me ruined. I didn't respond. Emily stood very still. Did you tell me everything? She asked him. Trevor ran a hand through his hair. I told you what you needed to hear so you wouldn't panic. So you wouldn't panic. That was his language now. Control disguised as protection. That evening, I transferred another $10,000 into the scholarship account. The fund paperwork was almost complete. The Alberta vocational program would carry Emily's mother's name. Trevor saw the confirmation email pop up on the shared printer. You're moving money? He snapped. Yes. While we're drowning? We, I said calmly, are not drowning. His voice rose. You're choosing a charity over your own family. I looked at him carefully. I am choosing legacy over leverage. Emily watched us like she was witnessing something she couldn't rewind. Later that night, she knocked softly on my door. "Dad," she said, eyes red. "Did he really block you?" "Yes." "For how long?" "6 months." She sat on the edge of the bed. "I thought you stopped calling," she whispered. "I never did." Tears filled her eyes, not dramatic, not loud, just realization. "He said you were slipping," she said, "that you were confused about money." I smiled faintly. "I've balanced steel accounts for 40 years, I said. "I can manage a checkbook." She let out a shaky breath. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because truth has weight," I said, and I needed proof. Downstairs, something crashed. Trevor had knocked over a chair. "This is my house too," he shouted. Emily flinched. No, it wasn't. The following morning, another envelope arrived, this time from his employer. A performance review meeting had been scheduled urgently. Trevor read it twice. "They're overreacting," he said. Emily didn't respond. He looked at her, searching for support. She didn't give it. By afternoon, he was on the phone again. "No, I can't liquidate that," he argued. "The equity was supposed to cover it." Was supposed to. He finally understood something. The house wasn't leverage anymore. It was evidence. And the knock that was coming next wouldn't be from the bank. Friday morning came without warning. At exactly 9:03 a.m., someone knocked. Not hard, not angry, official. Trevor froze in the hallway. Emily looked at me. I nodded once. When Trevor opened the door, Officer Dana Ruiz stood on the porch with a folder tucked beneath her arm. Behind her, a representative from the property management firm waited quietly, neutral expression, clipboard in hand. "Mr. Miles," Officer Ruiz asked. "Yes," she extended the document. "This is a formal notice of possession. The property has been legally transferred. You are required to vacate by end of day." Trevor blinked. "There's a mistake," he said immediately. "My father-in-law can't just—" "He already did," I said calmly, from behind him. Officer Ruiz glanced at me. "Mr. Brooks?" "Yes," she nodded slightly. "Transfer recorded Wednesday at 3:12 p.m. The numbers landed like steel. Trevor's jaw tightened. "You're throwing us out?" "No," I replied evenly. "The sale did." The representative stepped forward. "You have until 6 p.m. today to remove personal belongings," he said professionally. "After that, access will be restricted." Trevor's composure fractured. "This is harassment," he snapped. "He's destabilizing our family." Officer Ruiz didn't raise her voice. "Sir, this is a civil matter. Please cooperate." Emily stood motionless, absorbing every word. "Trevor," she said softly, "you told me there was time." "There was," he insisted. "He blindsided us." I watched him carefully. The moment had arrived. Not loud, not cinematic, just precise. "Your loan," I said quietly, "was already in default." Trevor spun toward me. "You revoked the guarantee." "Yes." "You ruined my recovery window." "There was no recovery," I replied. Emily's breathing quickened. "How much?" she asked again. $157,800, I repeated. Officer Ruiz cleared her throat gently. "Ma'am, you may want to gather essentials first." Trevor slammed his fist against the doorframe. The sound echoed. "This is my house, too," he shouted. The property representative lifted the clipboard. "Legally, it is not." Neighbors began peeking through curtains. Mrs. Parker stepped onto her porch, arms folded. Not judgmental, just witnessing. Trevor turned to Emily, desperation replacing arrogance. "If he leaves," he said sharply, "you leave with him." It wasn't a request. It was a command. Emily flinched. In that moment, I saw it clearly. Not greed, not ambition, control unraveling. She looked at him slowly. "You blocked my father," she said, "for 6 months. I was protecting you." "From what?" "From instability." She shook her head. "You told me he was confused about money." "He is!" I didn't respond. Officer Ruiz stepped aside, giving them space. Professional. Detached. Trevor's voice dropped. "I did what I had to do," he muttered. "The equity would have saved us." "Saved you?" Emily corrected. Silence. The kind that redraws lines permanently. I reached into my pocket and placed the brass key in Officer Ruiz's hand. "I'll be staying elsewhere," I said. Trevor stared at the gesture. "You planned this," he whispered. "No," I answered. "I prepared." Emily looked between us, father and husband, and for the first time since that message arrived at 11:47 p.m., she wasn't confused. She was choosing. But choices, once delayed, rarely come without cost. As the moving truck pulled into the driveway, Trevor realized something that had never occurred to him before. Leverage only works when you own the ground beneath your feet. And his was already gone. By Monday, the house no longer belonged to any of us. The driveway was empty, the porch light removed. Even the mailbox had been replaced with a temporary lockbox. I had already left town the night of the eviction. Idaho isn't dramatic, it's quiet. Pine trees, a small lake, a rented cabin that costs less per month than the property tax I used to pay back in Montana. Trevor called twice the first evening. I didn't answer. On Tuesday morning, I received a text from Carl Jennings. Loan officially accelerated. Bank demanding full payment within 30 days. Accelerated. There's something final about that word. By noon, Trevor's employer had scheduled a formal review. By Wednesday, it became a suspension. Emily told me later what happened, but at the time, I could imagine it clearly. Conference room, printed reports, questions about liquidity and financial stress. Project managers are supposed to manage risk, not drown in it. That evening, Trevor called again. "Lynn," he said when I finally picked up, voice thinner than I remembered. "You didn't have to go this far." "I didn't," I replied. "You did." "I was trying to build something," he said. "You've always looked down on me." That surprised me. "I co-signed your loan," I said quietly. "That's not looking down." Silence. Then he shifted. "You chose a scholarship fund over your own daughter." "No," I corrected. "I chose not to mortgage her future to fix your mistake." He hung up without another word. Later that night, I sat on the small porch of the cabin and reviewed the scholarship paperwork. The vocational grant in Alberta would carry her mother's name. First awards scheduled for fall. Emily used to talk about funding trade programs for kids who didn't want college debt. She was 19 when she said it. Trevor called it financially irrational. I called it memory. 2 days later, Emily sent a short message. "Dad, can we talk?" I waited before replying. "Yes." We spoke that evening. Her voice sounded different, not younger, not weaker, just clearer. "He lied about the investment," she said. "It wasn't 90,000. It was 120. I closed my eyes. "And the account?" I asked. "He moved money without telling me," she paused. "He said you forced him." "I removed myself," I said. "That's different." She exhaled slowly. "I defended him," she whispered. "For months." "I know." "He said you were slipping, that you were confused." I'm not. I see that now. That was the first honest sentence I'd heard from her in a long time. Trevor lost his position officially the following week. Not fired for fraud, just financial instability affecting performance. The phrasing was polite. The result wasn't. Another certified letter arrived at their temporary apartment. Notice of intent to litigate. The bank wanted recovery. Trevor called again. "I can fix this," he said. "If Emily co-signs a consolidation—" "No," I interrupted. There was a long pause. "She won't," I added. For the first time since I'd known him, Trevor didn't argue. He sounded tired. "Do you feel better?" he asked quietly. I thought about that. I wasn't smiling. I wasn't celebrating. "I feel finished," I said. After we hung up, I watched the lake until the light disappeared. Justice doesn't always feel triumphant. Sometimes it just feels complete. That night, another message came through. Not from Trevor, from Emily. And this one would change everything. Emily's message was short. "I left." Nothing more. No accusation. No apology. No request for money. Just 2 words that carried the weight of 3 years. We met a week later at a small diner halfway between my cabin and the city. Neutral ground, bright windows, coffee that tasted like it had been brewed since 1998. She looked thinner, not fragile, just tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix. "I moved into a 1-bedroom, she said quietly. "Temporary," I nodded. "And Trevor?" "He's staying with a friend." She paused. "He still thinks this is your fault." "That's easier," I said. She stirred her coffee without drinking it. "I didn't see it," she admitted. "The control. The way he framed everything like it was protection. Sham control rarely announces itself. It whispers. It isolates. It edits reality slowly until you doubt your own instincts." "I should have called you sooner," she said. "Yes," I answered gently. "You should have." The truth doesn't need to be cruel to be clear. She looked up at me then, not as a daughter defending her husband, but as a woman confronting her own choices. "He said selling the house was abuse," she added. "I sold my property," I replied calmly. "I didn't sell you." That landed differently. Over the next month, the legal consequences unfolded quietly. The bank filed its claim. Trevor's credit collapsed under the weight of leveraged decisions and inflated confidence. No dramatic courtroom scene, no handcuffs, just paperwork. Consequences are often administrative. The scholarship fund launched in early fall. 6 students, 2 studying welding, 1 pursuing automotive repair, a young woman entering a certified nursing program. Emily attended the small ceremony with me. She stood beside the plaque, bearing her mother's name. She didn't cry, she just stood a little straighter. We are not obligated to finance disrespect. We are not required to tolerate manipulation in the name of family. Boundaries are not revenge. They are architecture. Trevor sent one last message months later. "You didn't have to destroy everything." I didn't respond, because I hadn't destroyed anything. I had simply stopped holding it up. Emily is rebuilding now, slowly, on her own income, on her own judgment. Sometimes regret comes late, but growth still counts. If you've watched this far, thank you for sharing this time with me. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your part of the world. Take care of your health, especially your peace of mind. Please note, this story contains fictionalized elements created for educational, reflective, and entertainment purposes. And if this story moved you even a little, another one is waiting on your screen right now. YouTube believes you'll appreciate it. Until next time. Till next time. Till next time. Till next time.